Well, hello. I'm Lilith, the Augury of Chaos. Welcome back to Augury House Radio Show. We have an amazing episode today, and it's about Jonas Angelet, the event producer of Portland Center Stage. He's also a well-accomplished musician and artist. Our host today is the creative director of Augury House, Carissa, and she will introduce you about Jonas' work and his passions. I hope you can enjoy this episode. Bye.
Hello, welcome to Augury House's podcast show. My name is Carissa, and today we have our first guest, Jonas Angelet. Woohoo!
Hello.
Hey. So Jonas is working for PCS, and he and we met right before our Breaking Ground show. He provided us the space and the opportunity to, exhibit our artwork. So I'm really grateful for him, and I'm super grateful that he's here attending our podcast. So Jonas, how are you doing?
Good. Glad to see all the things you all have going on now, and happy to be here. I don't get to talk at length about my work or really in depth about some of the stuff I do, so I appreciate the opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Jonas is a musician, so I think we should talk about that part first.
Sure.
So what is a beat happening?
Yes, so Beat Happening is an event that I started in 2017, July 2017, with a friend of mine at the time, another artist who goes by Sembla. We started it to focus on strictly just beat makers and DJs, because the production side of music often gets neglected. In terms of shows around the city, concerts, nobody's really focused on beat makers. So we decided to start that and set it up like 4 beat makers and a DJ, all genres, all ages, all experience levels, just to kind of give people a space to share their work. And as of even yesterday, we celebrated the 6th year of doing it. So every lineup is different, and we have partnerships with different organizations around the city to do pop-ups and stuff, but it's always at one location. Lolo Pass this year.
Is it a monthly event?
Yeah, it's free monthly, every 3rd Sunday at Lolo Pass, which is like a hotel hostel on the east side.
Mm-hmm.
And it's intentionally curated to be free and all ages and accessible for anyone to come attend it. So I try to make sure that the date is consistent too.
Right. So I also learned that you train beat makers, right? In some way, there are some classes.
Yeah, I host, not me personally, but I do host DJ workshops, even here at Portland Center Stage, and with a partnership with Carissa, which is like an organization, nonprofit, that teaches musical education stuff. So I'm working with them to throw periodic 4-week DJ workshops. And then I have some partners out in Beaverton area and in Gresham too that have different music educational schools that we'll send people to if they want to learn.
You're a very community-oriented artist. You really help the community, especially helping like young artists who just started. Can you further explain what your ethos is when it comes to art and music? Yeah,
I think it's been part of me for my entire life. I've always kind of been driven to do. At the time when I was a kid, I just was volunteering for everything. I didn't really think of it as like community work. But I realized at some point that I was like, every time somebody told me that they hit an obstacle, I would try to figure out a way to help them, or figure out some resource that I could maybe share with them to access that. And that's just something that I've continued through past college and into my professional life. I grew up in a tiny town in Kentucky. We had zero options. It was kind of like work in a factory or leave. And I left. And when I see kind of youth fledgling in a place or somebody who's just kind of feels lost, to me, I'm trying to like share resources and keep people motivated for stuff like that. So I think that's both as an artist through collaboration or through a beat happening or even my position here. It's just engaging the community, seeing what the needs are, trying to fill that space with any available resources I have. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I've been doing it since I was a kid. I think some nerd stuff. I was in Boy Scouts, so I was really driven to do like activations and kind of always exploring ways to navigate spaces. So yeah. I think that's bled over into the rest of my life.
Yeah, very altruistic approach, and then like helping, collaborative method.
Yeah,
like help you, help me, help everyone. That's really, I think that might come up as a surprise to many people working in the entertainment industry, given how competitive it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. You were in New York before.
Yeah.
How would you compare New York and Portland? What's so distinct about Portland? What do you like, dislike?
I mean, New York was definitely like the center of everything that I was ever motivated by. Like my background is actually in visual arts, so that's why I have like a special affinity and like closeness to that community. Mm-hmm. But also as a musician, it's like all the music, all the art, all the kind of performance things drive you to New York at some point, or at least for me. I knew a bunch of graffiti writers and street artists and hip hop musicians and all that kind of, that energy is huge in New York. And so I just wanted to go and be around it. I didn't have necessarily a direct path to it, but my family is from New York, so I was just always had this calling as a creative person to be there, and so it was tough. Though I mean, that city will eat you alive if you let it. So I was very motivated, had multiple jobs, but very similar to how I kind of navigate even small opportunities. I like knew the artists whose work I liked, went to their exhibits, talked to them, figured out the gallery spaces, the galleries that I liked, and kind of frequented those. And so I felt very like motivated out there, and kind of like the hustle is built into everything you're doing. Like you can't rest if you feel like you're gonna make any waves at all. And so that part was tough, but I was ready for it. But at some point I was like, I've learned not everything, but I've experienced enough of what I like. I can take this energy elsewhere.
You can move beyond it.
Yeah, and because I'm not from New York, like I have family out there, I didn't feel like this pull of like, I can't leave. I'm at the best place, I can't go anywhere. I like the challenge of starting over in different places. And so, I worked, part of the many gigs that I had was working in tech and for Squarespace. And they opened an office out here in 2014. And I was like, I'll just use that as an excuse to relocate and then kind of branch out from there. So once I got here, the absence of all of those things was very apparent to me. Like all the things that excited me about New York were harder to find out here. Mm-hmm. So, but I hit the ground running. I like went to art galleries, went to art openings, First Thursdays, any kind of live music stuff. Seeking the hip hop community out here was harder to find. It still is kind of like stuck in little pockets, but because my background as an instrumental artist, I realized that there wasn't venues that focused on that, or there wasn't a ton of opportunities for just the producers. So, me and my friend Derek Sembla, we were like, let's just start our own, and so that's kind of been the impetus for a lot of stuff, is like those same kind of DIY motivations that worked in New York work out here too. Mm-hmm. It's just gathering resources and figuring out, who can understand that vision and who can like trust you to do that stuff. So I don't know. That's kind of a super long answer for.
No, that's wonderful.
But, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So lo-fi hip hop. What are some, I would say, genres that you're mainly focusing on, and like where did you get inspiration for creation? What is your beat making process? Would you like to share with us?
Yeah, that's a lot of different parts there, but yeah, I mean, I think for me, I've just always been drawn to hip hop. Knowing that I had family, one of my cousins was a graffiti writer, so like being around him in New York, and we used to go travel there when I was a kid, and just be like, I like the chaos of the big city. I like the noise. I like the arts, and the DIY core of a lot of hip hop is like, we don't have anything. Well, let's use what we have, you know. So that's very much how I felt growing up in Kentucky. I was like, I don't have studio equipment or friends that did anything, so did a bunch of terrible recordings of me and my friends just making noise, but I was always drawn to the production, the music recording side of things. And so later when I got to college, I met a hip-hop crew, a bilingual crew. They went by Break Bread, half English, half Spanish. So I DJ'd with them and I toured around the Midwest with them. And that planted the seed for me. I was just like that, there was a producer in the crew and I learned a lot from him, but there was always songs that I wanted to make, and so I would make stuff and I try to bring it to the crew, but the producer Reconstructa was like more than capable. So like they didn't always need my stuff, but I would release it on the internet, SoundCloud, Bandcamp and things like that. And it got a following of its own. So then I was like, oh, I don't really need MCs for any of this. I can just kind of put out beats. And then I discovered through that there's an entire ecosystem of just beat makers all around the globe. And so I would submit my work to different beat maker blogs and things like that. And people downloaded them and kind of started to like ask if they could use them for stuff. So it doesn't, like, I never really intended to make lo-fi hip hop, but making instrumental hip hop falls within the genre of lo-fi hip hop. So it's kind of funny that it turned into that. But that's mostly what I make, but I'm really drawn to experimental, electronic, it's just different versions of noise making and sorting samples out. So production wise, that's essentially the same philosophy I use. It's just, listening to old material or stuff that, audio that my friends might send me or something like that, and shaping it into something that I want to hear, and then building albums around that. And because of my background as an artist and designer, I can make my own album art, so I don't have to really depend. Like, I kind of feel like I'm my own little ecosystem. Yeah. And so, my knowledge of website design and social media and branding and all this stuff, it all goes into that. So I just kind of feed off of that and give myself weird deadlines to finish things and then release it. Yeah.
And you have the executive ability, like organizing things and then see work being done. Yeah. And then instead of just like, there's the creation process and the execution, and you can do both. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's fun because one of the jobs that I had when I was in New York was for an album packaging company. So I got to see the inside, from an insider's perspective of how that works. So like people submit their audio, they submit their artwork, then it has to get mastered, and then it gets to get shaped to a specific package, vinyl or CDs or whatever. So working in that industry gave me insight into like how much information needs to go into a legitimate release. And so I just kind of mimic label-based releases with my non-label based or my personal label releases, so that I know that it competes with major label releases in terms of how it's presented, the information, documentation, all of that stuff. So yeah, it's just little nerd things like that have all informed me, but it's like, I feel like all of it has fed into what I do, and it's all based on some exposure to the professional level of things.
So more generalist outlook of everything.
Yeah, and there's like different terms, there's like producer, engineer, whatever. I mean, there's 1,000 titles, but I've unintentionally equipped myself with some of those skills without never ever thinking of it as a title. But then when I see what some of these jobs are, I'm like, oh, I do that. Like I don't have to submit it to anyone because I know how to do that part of it. Yeah. So I'm pretty self-reliant when it comes to the arts, especially within music. So
you curate opportunities like for yourself, and you didn't need any permission from anybody.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's my favorite part of all of it, is that I don't have to check with anybody. It's mine. If I hate it, I can fix it.
Yeah. If
I don't, if I love it, I can use it again. If someone wants to use it for something, it's still mine.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm being completely honest here. Like, you're our role model. Like, you're our big bro. And then hearing your story the first time at the cafe, it really changed my mind, because before I was more like an actor looking for people giving me audition opportunity, like get cast, and keep hoping that I can rely on other people. But then instead of taking more responsibility, but you're like taking responsibilities. Like on the creation side, you start from the beginning as a creator, like with the sound collecting and like mixing. That's really inspirational. No,
that's great to hear.
Yeah,
because those are the kind of insights and kind of motivation that I hope gets gleaned from it, especially like the beat happening crowd. Like, when folks come to that, there's this assumed authority to, if you organize something and you keep doing it, everyone's just like, oh, you must have figured it out. Like, I have figured out some of it, but I'm very like, if I do something, I want to keep doing it until, it goes off the rails or something. But, there's a lot of assumptions about it being happening, that it's a business or it's a nonprofit or it's an LLC or something. And I'm like, it's none of that. It's strictly community building through music. And so, we don't have sponsors, we have like partners that we collaborate with, but all of this stuff is something somebody else can do too. It's just, I just have background. Like, if we needed a logo, I knew how to make a logo. If we need a website, I can make a website. We need flyers, I can make flyers. Like, I cut out a lot of the work that sets up stumbling blocks for people. And I think that works in any genre. So like, I love hearing that, because I want other people to feel like, don't rely on this, like make your own thing and make them notice this thing that you're doing. Yeah.
And did you have any trainings, like background in music, before you shift from like visual art to music?
No, I think I just always tinkered with it, and I like messed with it, and I have a bunch of stuff like recorded things with friends, but didn't really do anything with it. But some of them, like one of my best friends from high school passed away from a brain tumor, like not too long after high school. And I was always bummed that his music never made it past our friend circle. Like, he recorded stuff but didn't ever do anything with it. He sent it to me in the mail sometimes, but using that as a motivator, I was like, even if everyone hates the stuff that I make, I'm gonna put it out into the world. Like, I have this thing about like, finish and release it. Because you can always get better. And I like kind of the time markers of work that I'm proud of that could maybe have been better, but I like those timestamps living out in the world.
Wow.
So
this reminds me of our Kevin.
Oh yeah.
He's like that too. He posts out a lot of stuff. Yeah, because I don't know, it's in some way very therapeutic in a way to see how you've grown, and then to include the imperfections that you see at a time where you just don't feel ashamed of yourself.
Yeah.
Have a thick skin.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's just like I like those markers of like, oh, I have evolved since then. Even with artwork or design, I'm like, I did that in Photoshop. I should have done it in Illustrator type things, like nerd things that only matter to me. Most people never notice that stuff. They just see whatever it is that you have presented, and then go off of that. So I think part of that is just like I like that it floats out in the world in the ether of things, because sometimes it comes back to you in unexpected ways. Somebody will find it and want to use it for a movie or whatever it is. Just I like to not be in control of it.
And so where can we find your work?
I mean, it depends on what version you're looking for, but like with A Beat Happening, it's on all social media or Instagram, Facebook. It has a website, abeathappening.org, O-R-G. We have a YouTube channel that has like videos of everything from the last 6 years. YouTube at A Beat Happening, A-B-E-A-T happening, everything spelled correctly. And then for the music stuff, Love Jones, LUVJONEZ on all streaming platforms, all audio stuff, YouTube, Bandcamp, all of that. And then for community work, I do have a website, but it's mostly on my design things, so I'm kind of restructuring it to reflect the community stuff. But if you follow the community events at Portland Center Stage, that's all me. So, yeah.
All right.
Anything that's not on stage as a theater event is my work.
Anything else you want to say to our audience about, what you've been doing or the future? Like, what do you envision and what events are coming up? Yeah,
I mean, I stay pretty actively creative, working on several collaboration albums with people, with a live musician, writing some grants to support my work as an artist. If you want to check A Beat Happening out, it's every third Sunday at Lolo Pass, 1616 East Burnside, until October, and then I take the winter off until February. And then if you want to hear Love Jones music, if you don't catch me live is rare these days, but you can listen to everything I've ever made on streaming platforms, Apple Music, Spotify, all that stuff. So.
Okay, thank you so much for the interview.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that conversation between Carissa and Jonas. All the links for Jonas and his work with A Beat Happening will be found on the description of this episode, so please check that out. And haven't seen from me in a while, but rest assured we've been doing like a lot of radio stuff and other fun projects that will be launching in the near future. In fact, as we're speaking right now, we have another episode with an artist and community organizer, Mike Firm, that we're currently working on producing. And with those two episodes, with this one and the Mike Firm one, that'll be like the start for a bunch of new radio content coming forward. So stick around and we'll see you in the next episode.